It's all a group effort. It's all a team effort. So data team has to work with the operators. Operators have to work with the data team. And it's a product that you're both building together with the goal of advancing whatever business objective that dashboard's focused on. So if you frame it that way, see it as a triangle that you're side by side on trying to get to a point, then I think you're going to have better success.
Today, we are going to talk through the topic of the top dashboard fails. What are some of the common pitfalls in BI and reporting adoption, and what can operations leaders do to fix those things? So I'll just jump right into it and open it up to you, Wesley. What are some of the things that you've seen when an organization's trying to adopt reporting and analytics, sees the value of data, but can't get it off the ground properly? Have you seen this before? What's your experience been like?
Yeah, absolutely. I forget, but there was a statistic a while back that I had seen online, and I've seen it in a few different sources floating around of, like 90% of BI dashboards end up unused after like 6 months, which I'd consider that a fail. Because the point is to have them be used, ideally daily, weekly, monthly, however often that is. So it's definitely a big problem. And having the experience with multiple organizations of different types, healthcare providers, software providers, all these different avenues, no one's immune to it. Everyone can encounter kind of, failed dashboards or something that sounds like a great idea at the start and never gets its legs. One top reason that comes to mind is not involving the actual end users of the dashboard whenever you're building it. So it's an easy mistake to make because there might be an initiative from at the leadership level to improve some KPI in the business. Like if you're a practice, it might be that you want to improve your DSO, day sales outstanding, on your AR. And that's an awesome goal to improve. So the leadership knows that that's a metric they want to improve. They bring in the data team, build a dashboard, and then it's out there. And leadership might look at it occasionally. BI team is maintaining it and making sure that it's refreshing, but sometimes never really happens is actually pulling in the people that need to see that dashboard to the development process, which is like your billing managers or your regional clinic managers that actually have influence over that metric or that area that you're trying to improve, and asking them, what's the things that you need to see to be able to improve this number or this goal that you have in the practice? And then let's build it with that in mind. Because what they need to see as operators is different than what executive team member might need to see, and definitely probably different than what a BI team might just guess on their own of what they need to see unless they have that real world experience.
Yeah. I'm hearing actually a lot in that one example. I'm hearing a lot of different reasons for failure. And so just to hit on a couple things, I mean, you had categorized it as not involving the operations staff in the development process. Which leads to a whole bunch of other questions. What does involvement look like? Let's flip it around and say, what is the right level of involvement? What does that interaction look like if you're to solve that failure or that pain point?
There should be interaction at every stage of the development, I believe, which is the initial scoping of the dashboard. There should be the end users or a representative of the end users involved that is actually saying what they would need in a dashboard or in a BI solution to be able to help them do their job better. So that's them actually helping to provide the requirements for developing it. And then they need to be involved as it gets developed, kind of iteratively, where the BI team shows their progress, says, hey, here's what we came up with. Does this look like it's on the right track? There should be a representative there to say, well, that's not quite what I meant, or maybe could we add this thing to make it even better? So involved in that kind of feedback loop. And then after it goes live, there should still be involvement with the end user where they're able to continually provide feedback on if something's not working the way it was intended, or maybe something could be added to make it even better that they think of later. Because that's definitely another thing that we see is if someone is going to a dashboard or a report and they're not getting what they want out of it, and they don't have a means to tell you that, then they're just going to stop using it, and they're going to find another way to get to those numbers or that insight that they need.
Can you think of some examples when we start working with clients? And one of the first things that we do is we say, do you have a example report? Do you have something you're using today to start with? So that way you have kind of that initial visualization layer. And even if it's not visualization, do you have like a data table that you reference? Do you have a data extract that you have to do every Monday or whatever the frequency is? And getting that prerequisite piece done. Some of our clients, one of our larger RCM services organization leaders, I was at a conference and he actually wrote on a piece of paper and started drawing like what visuals and dashboards might look like, just conceptually what he would read and react to. So like just labeling the KPIs and here's a line, here's a bar, but that level of input was critical to get the first iteration out. But to your point on the latter part, which is, well, one, he was involved in that process and he had some direction over it because he was ultimately going to be the end user. So if the key metric for a developer is utilization, then in order to achieve that, have them involved. But even once you're involved in the process, you go through development, you move it to production, everything's all of a sudden different in a real world. So having ticketing systems, having feedback loops, having weekly or quarterly meetings, these are all ideas to improve making sure that adoption remains high and utilization remains high. Once something is up and running, you want to maintain that level of involvement. What are some tools that you use or strategies that you use to schedule that? How does that interaction look with the end users, and how do you optimize or solve for that pain point?
There's a lot of different strategies. So number one, best thing you can do is make it very clear how they can submit like a ticket of if something doesn't look right or something's wrong. Because like I said, if they think that something's wrong with the report or something is wrong with the report routinely, they're just not going to use that report anymore if they don't have a way to tell you and you're not able to get it fixed quickly. So embedding a ticket link into the dashboard or making it a public thing that's available is definitely super helpful. And then there's so many things you can do now with different tools where you can give them status updates of like how that ticket's actually progressing once it is submitted, so that it's sending out emails and letting them know, it's being worked on now, it's been fixed, updating them through every step so that they have the visibility into that. So that's one thing. And then definitely just some sort of regular cadence with a group of end users. And as well, something that I've noticed that is also really helpful is if there is ever a situation where you can actually have a BI team member or someone from your team join the calls where they're using those dashboards, like in real life, like a call where they're using that dashboard to look at their numbers for their clinics and they're all giving their updates on where they're at. Because when you see people use it, it completely changes the way that you look at how it was designed. Yeah. Because you see them kind of clunkily click around and try to find something, and it just clicks that light bulb in your head of, oh, well, if we move that here and made that more present here, you just see those insights that they're trying to get to and how you can make it easier for them.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one, honestly, because that UI UX, if you're building something, your design and aesthetic preferences as a developer are kind of embedded into the platform itself. And so, of course, you know how to navigate, the multi-select filters. And of course, you know how to navigate to all the different, the question mark that triggers the ticketing system. But to see somebody actually go through and do it, yeah, I mean, what a powerful thing that just because you have to be so intuitive. And obviously, like the company that comes to mind is having the most, intuitive platform is Apple. They always seem to come out with like the easiest things. But you can give an iPad to a child and immediately they start swiping and they immediately figure it out. So if you think about it as a developer to make it that simple, the other thing is as an operator, let's turn it around. As an operator, you have to be vocal about, I can't find this, or it took me too long, or so to have that communication gap. If it's not already happening, you don't have that meeting or cadence scheduled, you have to request it. You got to get it on the books, because especially in situations where you have your own BI team or BI developers, those are scenarios where you shouldn't have to wait for a solution. It should be on the radar. It may be in a backlog of tickets, but at least it's recognized and acknowledged and the hopper to get fixed.
If you're the BI team, you also can't just sit on your hands and wait for the operator to come to you with that feedback, mm-hmm. right? Because they have a million things that they're doing in their day. Their first thought isn't always going to be to tell you how something wasn't optimally designed, or they might not even know the best way to do it, that it's possible to do it a different way. So yeah, being proactive about getting those meetings set up and extracting that information out of them is super key. It's actually people are more open to giving that feedback whenever you approach them than you might initially think. They want to collaborate on these tools. They want to make them better. It makes their life easier, but you have to put in the legwork as a data team, as a BI team, to actually put yourself into the business as another kind of business domain and work alongside them, not just wait for them to come and tell you what to change.
I think it's that it's a team. You have to look at it as a team, and everybody brings their own skill set to it. So we talked about involving operators in the process. We've talked about once something is published to continually give access to openly iterate on it. And then the importance of UI, UX, so the actual design and layout and structure of it to make sure it's something intuitive and usable when you're not even in the room to train or point to the right things in the screens. Earlier on, you had talked about just utilization in general of something that people request, they develop, and then it starts to waver off. I want to talk for a second about this. Have you seen people request things and build dashboards that are better suited for ad hoc or once, in a while items that you spend a ton of time doing dashboards on? And so I guess if you have any stories or if you have any examples, how do you find that out earlier in the process if it's not suited for a dashboard? And what's the best way to approach a scenario like that?
The biggest thing is that a lot of times it's more of an analysis that people are looking for than a dashboard. So it might be like one example that comes to mind was a client that was looking for patient collection rate analysis. There was a dashboarding component to it, but the majority of the request was actually analyzing their patient collection rate, seeing how they did over time, where the gaps were at, what could things look like if they were to change to a different vendor for collections and things like that. So that was really a one-time thing because it's a one-time business decision of, do we need to change vendors for our patient collections? When they initially came, of course, the dashboard gets thrown around a lot. It's a term that people use. And whenever you're thinking of charts and graphs, you think dashboard. So one of the things that you can kind of ask to determine if it actually should be a dashboard or not is like, what's the recurring use case of this thing? Like, how often are you going to be looking at it and how is it going to evolve? Like the DSO or AR dashboard I was talking about, you're always going to be monitoring the DSO of your practice and your AR and seeing what the problem payers are. That's a dashboard. That's something that you log into each week, each month, however often it is, as long as it's recurring and you're going to be going back to, and it's always going to be evolving with new data and new things that you need to look at for your business. So as a data team and as a BI team, it definitely is your job to try and frame that out whenever you get these requests, because the last thing you want is a million dashboards and no one knows where to go. Because there's all of these pages and pages of reports, whenever really maybe you could have just built a one-time report, delivered them the analysis, and then archived that, moved along, went on to the next thing. And the other thing is, too, if you build a dashboard for a use case that wasn't analysis, you're probably totally missing the mark on what the business actually wanted, because you build a dashboard and then you give it to them and you say, okay, well, here you go. These are numbers you asked for. But what they really wanted was, should I make this decision? What do the numbers tell you? They wanted to know what you see in the data. They didn't want you to necessarily just present them the data and have them have to do all of that legwork. So
yeah. I mean, that is that initial discovery part of it, asking the right questions. Is this triggered by an event in your business, or is this a recurring need that aligns with some corporate goal? So if it's monitoring DSO or your accounts receivable and your accounts receivable aging, that you're always going to want to monitor your AR and how quickly you're getting paid. But if you're in a contract negotiation and it happens once every year or 2 years and it's with a specific payer, that may be more of an ad hoc analysis, not necessarily required to have a dashboard specific to it. Now, if you're doing contract negotiations every single month and you're a really large entity and you have a lot of activity in that space, there may be some dashboards to monitor, differentiating between those two, because I guess as a byproduct, you're going to have bloat of dashboards, people not knowing where to go, which impacts UI, UX. And now people don't know where to find, just like how you have 1,000 apps on your phone and you only use 2 of them. You have to sift through all the pages. So you don't want to have that experience for your end users, because that can negatively impact the likelihood that a certain dashboard is used, or maybe it's forgotten about and then you're rebuilding things. So yeah, that initial discovery. One last one that I heard you mention earlier, this is a challenge, but having an executive team member make a request for a dashboard but not enforce it or communicate it to those below within their team. This is one I've seen all too frequently, where there's an executive, and it's not necessarily wrong that the executive is making a request. So I want to make sure that's clear, but it's more about, in terms of improving adoption of the investment, the executive team should be in full support and in driving a lot of this work as well. But you also are responsible for communicating the significance of each individual in your practice and how they align with that goal. So as an operator, if you're seeing, one of the biggest fails, it's a lot of times it's the leaders not communicating the what and why they're doing it and how people fit in.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of open this up to you as well. Is this something that you're experiencing or seeing with some clients? Is it been a detriment to some of the projects, or is it something that is very solvable, and how would you solve it?
Yeah, I think we definitely do see it a good amount, but I do think it is very solvable. So as an example, like where I've seen this work really well, one of our clients, the executive often makes the initial dashboard request because they have the bird's eye view of the business and know the things that they want to work towards and the strategic goals. And they're communicating with the board on what those things are. But what they do, which is really smart and a really good way to do it, is anytime that there's a dashboard, they assign an owner to it that's not them. So if it's a denials dashboard, they bring a person in from the follow-up team, from whichever team that dashboard pertains to. And they're like, hey, this is your thing to own now. If you have changes that you want made, you work with Parable on it. And also in our meetings, you're going to be responsible for bringing these numbers and presenting what they are. And if they're heading in the wrong direction, that's also your responsibility. And so they always assign like a really clear owner to every dashboard. And I think that just is a really good way to do it, because it gives one person the responsibility, and then they can disseminate that information out and also share that dashboard out to the people that need it also on their team, if it's a departmental goal or whatever that might be. And that just keeps the utilization high. But then as the executive, what they're doing is they're enforcing that accountability in the monthly meetings or wherever that is of, hey, what is the update on our front-end denial rate? How are the eligibility denials looking? They're asking the questions, but there's a different person than them that's the owner and has the answers for what the data points are.
That honestly may be the best advice of the whole discussion, because by assigning that person to be the leader of the development, not actually doing the coding that's in the development, but to guide the direction of that specific dashboard or that chain of reports and dashboards that's related to denials or patient access or collections or clinical outcomes, whatever it is. If you assign that person, then that gives them the ownership. They're going to be involved as an operator in the input part of it. They're going to make sure that they're using it, which creates the UI UX feedback loop. As far as the frequency and consistency, if it's something that they're building, they're more likely to use it themselves. And so it becomes part of their, daily, weekly, monthly routine. So I think just by, as a leader, communicating, even it's a great example too. Sometimes leaders just have a better point of view over the business as well as the market and what services and things are available and what they should be doing differently by comparison to similar specialty providers in the area or in the nation. So that executive level can designate that leader, and then the trickle through effect really solves a lot of the pain points we talked about today.
Yeah.
Any other common failures or pain points you see that you think should be addressed or quantified in this discussion?
I think just to wrap it all up, I'd say it's all a group effort. It's all a team effort. So data team has to work with the operators. Operators have to work with the data team. And it's a product that you're both building together with the goal of advancing whatever business objective that dashboard's focused on. So if you frame it that way, see it as a triangle that you're side by side on trying to get to a point, then I think you're going to have better success.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, Wesley. And for those of you who are interested in building out your own BI and analytics team, please reach out to Parable Associates. You can follow us on LinkedIn. It's Parable Associates, Parable Associates. It's a great way to reach out to us. And Wesley and I are both on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to follow us and reach out and connect.